Hello friends, welcome to another video. It's Morgana here, and today I'm going to demonstrate this beautiful, simple birds on a wire tutorial. You can see I've begun just with a very simple pencil outline. It's just a couple of telegraph poles and some wires. I began in pencil, and then once I was happy with the shape, I've gone over the lines in pen. This is the one I used. It's a PIGMA Micron fine line pen, size 02. These are really good pens to use for this sort of work, sort of a line and wash type painting, because they are fully waterproof and archival ink actually, which means they won't fade in the sun or from age. So they're really great pens to use. You can see I've already done most of the work. I'm just showing you here this technique of using the pen nib very lightly over this textured watercolour paper. This is cold press paper, so it does have a little bumpiness to it. So you can see I'm using the pen nib very lightly, keeping some of the texture of the paper rather than filling in this dark telegraph pole entirely black. This is giving the implication of the texture of the wood, and once we put the sky wash in, is going to give the illusion of light glinting off the side of the pole, rather than it just being a sort of a matte, sort of flat black line, something uninteresting. You see I'm just dusting the nib of this pen, which is very fine, just dusting it lightly over the surface of the paper, making use of that lovely texture. There we go, there's my starting as usual with my extra large Pro Arte hake brush. This is a Ron Ranson brush, and for this painting I'm covering the whole surface with water. You can see it's it's lucky I used a waterproof pen, otherwise that would be a complete mess by now. Making sure that paper is really nice and wet. For this sort of technique of doing a colour wash and then popping in some clouds that I'm about to show you, the best tip that I can give is to really make sure your paper is lovely and wet before you start. So I'm beginning with a bit of yellow. This is raw sienna, a colour I love to use for a lovely glowing sky. And I'm popping it in with my Escoda Ultimo synthetic mop brush. This came from a website, I believe, called Jackson's Art Supplies, but you can get these brushes from most sort of reputable art shops, I believe. Coming in now with some cerulean blue, using a medium hake brush just to get a nice bit of quick coverage on that. You can see I have my paper at a slight angle here, probably roughly 30 degrees-ish. You can tell from how the yellow at the bottom is starting to run down the page, getting a nice diffusion already. You can see here I've switched back to my mop brush in order to just push the blue further towards the yellow. You see I'm not pushing it right into the yellow there. I don't want to mix the colours. I don't want to create green out of this blue and yellow. I just want them to sort of meet and diffuse beautifully. So this colour here that I'm using is Opera Rose, a beautiful pink colour. Really bright, vibrant pigment. I don't know if you can tell from this video, but you only need to use a very small amount. A little goes a long way. It's very bright. but I find it's great for skies in small doses. It gives a wonderful bright pinkish sort of dusty glow. Plus it mixes really well with the yellow and the blue, creating those sort of dusty purple colours, purpley, pinky, peachy colours. And now at the bottom here I'm just using some light red and blending that in as well. Just wanted a little darker tone at the bottom to imply where the sun has set, giving a few sort of darker, almost cloudy tones there, sort of little burnt red colours at the bottom. This is cobalt blue I'm putting in now as well, to see it's blending in nicely. And now again with my same brush, I've rinsed it off and I'm using some Paynes grey here, slightly diluted, to just drop in some clouds in this lovely sort of drift pattern, working from the centre of the page up through the nice wet sky and just sort of dropping in these lovely clouds. You must do this while the paint is wet for this particular effect. You can see I'm working a little bit harder on these top left clouds than I did on the others. This is partly because I wanted this to be a nice sort of big chunky sort of storm cloud almost, or rain cloud perhaps, approaching in from the west, but also because at the top here my paper has slightly dried a little more. You can see as I'm putting on the paint it's not diffusing out nearly so easily as it did before with those smaller wispier clouds, so I'm having to work a little bit harder to get a similar effect. You see I'm trying to blend those edges there and just get those lovely sort of soft diffused outlines and gentle shapes. You can see that I'm just using a slight sort of gentle circling motion to get those sort of puffy cloud effects, just scooting the brush round and round in a gentle, sort of slightly decreasing spiral. Just dabbing it on to get those lovely little grey wisps of cloud. And now I'm also using a piece of kitchen towel that I've scrunched up, and I'm using it to pull a little bit of paint out of these top clouds to get a bit more light and get a little bit of extra texture in there. And now that the painting is dry, I'm going to move on to popping some birds on these lovely wires here. You could use your fine liner pen to do this if you like, but I prefer to use paint for this. I'm using a very fine brush. This is a Masterstroke miniature brush from Pro Arte, size 4/0 or quadruple 0, whichever you prefer. It's very fine, it's perfect for this sort of detail. You can see I'm just grouping my little birds pretty sporadically along this middle line to begin with. I'm using Paynes grey for this, but you could use any dark colour you have to hand. Black would be good, or a dark blue or a dark brown, whatever you fancy. But I already had some Paynes grey on my palette because of the clouds, so that's what I ended up using. You can see for the birds I'm essentially just doing, it's difficult to describe the shape, just a small, oh, there we go, trying to get the camera to focus on this little brush. There you go, just for reference, anyone who's interested. Yeah, I think perhaps almost like a slanted oval shape for these birds. It's important to put them on the right side of the wire, obviously, perched on top, and try not to put them on in too symmetrical a manner. They want to look a little bit randomly placed, but not just one every sort of couple of centimetres. Just imagine how they would naturally flock together. This painting was inspired by a group of starlings I saw coming to roost recently on a walk, and they all sort of flew in a big bundle and sort of scattered themselves across these telegraph poles and across these wires, and I thought, oh, well, that's wonderful. And of course came back and decided to paint this. At the time the sky wasn't nearly so dramatic. That one's an invention, but I think it looks pretty nonetheless. Another important thing for this, obviously, is the perspective. Down on the left-hand side here, these wires are further away you can see that I've drawn them thinner, as well as the pole that is thinner and smaller, so obviously the birds need to be smaller as well. They're just small dots at this scale, and then up here, closer to the viewer on this larger pole, just got a little larger size and a little bit more shape. And now just popping in some birds in flight as well, just coming in to roost, I think. So I'm doing a variation on that sort of classic V-shaped bird, using very light strokes and making sure to vary the wing placement as well, so they don't all look the same. I think a fine brush and a light touch is the key here for these sorts of birds, to not make them look too clumsy and clunky and like just sort of add-ons, you know. And here we have the finished painting. I hope you all enjoyed watching this. I hope you take something away from this video that's useful. I think this is potentially a really good sort of practice tutorial for anyone who's just starting out on watercolour. It's sort of really 3 stages, this painting: the drawing, then the sky wash, and then whatever birds you decide to pop in. So please do leave a comment below if you enjoyed, or if you didn't enjoy, you know, also leave a comment if you like. There's always room for improvement on everything. But thank you all for watching. Please leave a like and subscribe to my channel, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye for now.